Greetings and salutation. This is Carla from Mortal JA, and I am here at the National Gallery West to check out the Surreal Black exhibition. Now, for those of you who don't know, National Gallery West is in Montego Bay, so I'm coming to you right now from the heart of the town. I'm very excited. Let's check it out. Everybody, this is the Assistant Curator, Monique Gilpin, and she's going to give us a little bit of the groundwork before we're jumping on the thing too deep. Sure.
Hey everyone, welcome to National Gallery West. I hope you're all keeping safe during the pandemic. For all of those who got a chance to see Surreal Black, the virtual tour via our YouTube channel, here we are giving you a much deeper insight and creating discourse around the evolving meanings of this exhibition. We've invited Carla Moore, activist, consultant, and influencer, micro-influencer, to collaborate with us on this venture. So, are we ready to go?
I'm ready. So, Monique, tell me a little bit about the title of this exhibition. Why is it called Surreal Black?
Alright, so Surreal Black, before I even get into the title, surreal, the term surreal or surrealism where art is concerned, is the movement that pretty much involves visual artworks, writings, and the juxtaposition of the distant realities. Activating the unconscious through the means of visual arts or the actual art.
Okay.
So Surreal Black now, the title, you could talk about different aspects of surrealism, that's the abstract surrealism. However, where the works are concerned, it refers to a lot of the events that have been taking place in the last year or so. It speaks to the resurgence of especially the Black Lives Movement that has come about in the last year, especially in the United States and other parts of the world. So Surreal Black is pretty much a discourse surrounding the topics.
Okay. I love that because I think there's a way that sometimes when we think of, social movements and we think about like NSARS in Nigeria and we think about trying to take down Lord Nelson in Barbados and we think about Black Lives Matter and then we think of art, we think that there's this massive distance between them. But in reality, I think art is always in conversation with what is happening in these type of social justice movements.
Sure.
Okay, so what made National Gallery West feel that this was the moment to mount the Surreal Black exhibition?
National Gallery West always tries to play a part in showcasing or exhibiting works that speak to the African diaspora. And in a time when these conversations are now coming up, and not just locally, but across the board, we felt that it was important for people to be made aware through art. These discourses are happening for a lot of people through the lens of social media. And it's not necessarily something that is spoken of or addressed or acknowledged through artworks, especially artworks that were created from a particular period of time. And this is during like the post-colonial era. Sort of a way in which that artists, especially the ones featured in this exhibition, have internalized what that means and reproduce that kind of feeling throughout their pieces.
Like this.
Figure with Mask by Omari Ra.
Right.
Omari Ra generally, throughout his pieces, evokes the concept of blackness. And speaks highly of blackness through his pieces. I see you nodding.
So this piece it feels aggressive to me, right? It feels like he's coming directly at me. The fact that the body language just feels like, it's well open, but it's open in like a menacing way, like somebody who's bracing for a fight. And there's something about this penis that's just in the middle of everything. It just dead.
Just love.
That like.
Well, I guess in comparison to, you can look at it in comparison to, again, what the exhibition speaks to.
Yeah.
These topics need to be heard. They've not been heard by, especially the wider society.
Yeah.
And our art generally, we look at it as a form or a way in which to have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And bring awareness to what is blackness and what blackness means.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about just penises,
but
in terms of the general meaning, being seen, being heard, and the importance of that.
When I look at this, it feels like a conversation about black masculinity, especially around what are the postures that we allow black men to occupy, especially because of the idea that they're always supposed to be strong, they're always supposed to be dominant, they're always supposed to be ready to fight. But then there's also a way that, in terms of our relationship with the global north, black masculinity is equated with the black penis. I mean, BBC is a genre to itself, and so it brings up a lot of emotions, which I think when I started thinking about art, I used to feel art is supposed to be pretty, and therefore art is supposed to make me feel happy, like I'm supposed to feel soft and like I'm looking at a daisy. And then when I would see art like this, I would be like, well, me not feel like me really understand this art something here because me feel uncomfortable. And then I would feel like I'm not getting it.
Well, where Figure with Mask is an art, and those pieces that evoke these kinds of emotions, again, it all depends on how the viewer perceives it within that moment. Given to how one is socialized, a lot of these constructs will determine how you view the piece. And art isn't always meant to be pretty and make you feel like fluff and butterflies in your stomach. And that also emotes to the artist getting the point across.
Yeah. So it's okay that I can look at it and I can feel uncomfortable, and that's absolutely okay.
That's absolutely okay.
Okay, sir, with your penis. All right. You're not just a penis, so you make me uncomfortable. All right, where may I go now?
All right, so we are heading over to Marvin Bartley's Madonna Enthroned, which is a digital photograph created in 2008. Right. Now tell me, when you look at this piece, what do you feel?
So I feel discomfort. The discomfort is for a couple of reasons. One, what I see is black death. Like I feel like I'm seeing a bunch of dead black people. And then I see this other person who looks like a Christian reference, who looks so at peace with it. She's not bothered by all of this. And that bothers me.
So the work is very symbolic of a lot of the Christian doctrines of the past, and it also references the transatlantic slave trade. So here Marvin has the epitome of, when you hear the term Madonna, this, holy line, glorious amongst the sea of dead bodies, dead and female bodies. One of the in comparison to what we spoke about earlier with regards to a lot of the hate crimes against the black African Americans or black people in general, or people of color, is again the hate crimes. People dying left, right, and center because of the color of their skin. In this exhibition, this piece could speak to that. The work also speaks to a lot of the hate crimes that people of the African diaspora experience and have been experiencing over generations, coming from the period of slavery to current. And this is just a reminder of those situations.
So when I see the religious imagery, it makes me think about the way that when we think about hate crimes, we think, oh, you know, white people committing crimes against black people, but we don't think about how a lot of that is rooted in Christian religious doctrine. And how Christianity was a tool of slavery, and actually there's a way that the slave trade was passed off as a civilizing mission, you know, actually mission work to bring Christianity to the African continent.
So that's and then too, if you were to do your research and date back to a lot of this kind of imagery was also used in those periods. Nudity, the body just kind of slain and looked like unimportant and unnecessary to society. Is pretty much is what the piece depicts.
So when I'm looking at this, I wonder if our reaction to it would be different if more of the people on the ground are dark skinned. Because I think we're actually attuned to looking at dark skinned black people as killable and in a way always already on the way to death. Whereas when we see a light skinned black body, what we think is our desire or it's sexual, you know.
And that's also across the board when you think about it, not just in visual arts, but the kind of imagery that you see in the media. People glorify, again, if you were to think about the tonalities, people glorify that persons of a lighter complexion than that of a darker complexion. And I mean, it's very deep rooted. You can go much further into this, and this can go even outside of what Surreal Black also talks about. But we're gonna stay on track.
We're gonna keep it together.
We're gonna keep it together.
Keep it together, y'all.
One other thing outside of that too that we can talk about just something bit on is nudity and being uncomfortable with that. I mean, that was one of the things that you brought up in the Moira's piece. The very openness of figure with mask, and here you have several bodies just in the nude.
And they're shaved. I think that's bothering me even more is you can see everything. I feel like if we see the body and you know you have a little hair, you feel
feel a little bit more uncomfortable with that.
Really? For me is when I can see everything, I'm like nothing. So why do we put nudity in art? If it makes people uncomfortable, is that the reason?
Again, evoking a certain type of emotion, and then for me as an artist as well, it's the comparison between art and what is put out in the media. When you look at our dancehall posters, anything that's associated with that, advertisements, it is plastered all over that. But in art, somehow it's people think it's an excuse when really and truly it isn't. I don't know why we're so uncomfortable with it, but with art, again, it's just evoking that kind of emotion and speaking to particular topics surrounding that.
I mean, we're uncomfortable with it in real life because on the one hand, we're like, oh, don't be a boring girl and you need to look sexy. And then on the other hand, there are people trolling you online and telling you that you're a thought because you are nude as they rewarded you for being. So they like it.
It's a constant battle.
It is a constant
battle. But when you think about it, you came into this earth nude, naked, bare.
Well, I came covered in hair, to be frank. I was kind of a gorilla when I was born. You know, in theory, I was naked.
If you want to put it that way, some of us, but generally, we all came into this earth bare, nude, and so using it in art to depict a particular kind of concept shouldn't be an issue. But
and it comes back here, like this particular religious doctrine is a part of that.
Yes.
The naked body.
Yes. And another thing about Marvin's piece is that obviously, as we mentioned earlier, the basis by which it is created is based on a lot of the Christian doctrines, historical Christian doctrines. And there is another artist who also uses historical events in his work, or uses that to influence his pieces, and that is Carla Abrams. So we can go over to
let's move
Carla
on.
Abrams. Adam. Carl Abrahams, who started out as an illustrator, but then eventually became a painter. He references a lot of the Christian stories that you've learned about over the years from the Bible, etc. Where this piece is concerned in comparison to Marvin's piece, obviously there is not the high level of nudity, but it does refer to masculinity.
The idea of the black body kind of just laying there, but this one feels more active because the neck is up and the person is engaged. When I look at this, I think sometimes there's a way with art that people will be like, so that's an art, it really just trace out one, some look like people could have tried, that's an art, but I feel more peaceful in a way looking at this
in comparison to
Omari Ra.
There's not the same level of abrasiveness, a more subtle kind of idea of what masculinity speaks to, and that's what Carla Abrahams has portrayed in this piece.
To me it feels like you just woke up and he said, "What's happening?" Which I feel like if somebody fell asleep in the civil rights movement and they woke up in 2020 and somebody was like, "It's 2020," they'll be like, "What is happening? Why are we still fighting over the same thing? We never start this out in a time when I was asleep." We should have fixed this, and you're correct, Adam. We should have fixed this by now.
Oh well, Carl Abrahams also has another piece that is connected. That one is titled Hallelujah, Hallelujah, which is on the other side. So we should go take a look. That's fine.
Okay. All right.
So with Carl Abrahams, Hallelujah, 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 done in 1965. Of course, again, as I've mentioned before, a lot of his pieces are based on, again, just like Marvin, the Christian doctrine, and they're very much inspired by that era. Considering too that Christianity is perversely like a part of our culture, and this is also stemming from the period of slavery where religion and Christianity was a big part or major part, and it still is in a lot of our society or cultures today.
I think that matter of Christianity is like it's really vexed, and then also how much space Christianity actually makes for blackness. So on the one hand, when I see something that's like hallelujah, 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 I think I like the black church and how you need the black church because you go and you shake out all your problems on Sunday, you feel better, and then you can go back to Bakermassa where I won't call it the places that I consider Bakermassa places. You can go back to work, but also it becomes part and parcel of maintaining the oppression, because if you're always rejuvenating yourself, you never really go into the revolution, you never really ask, no need for changes and burn this down. So when I'm looking at this, first of all, I saw this and I was like, it's a spaceship, right?
Again, it's okay, it's your own perception, it's what you see.
It's because Kanye West has this song called Spaceship, and he talks about how he wishes he could buy a spaceship and effectively fly away from his life. And so when I look at these black people who seem so happy and seem free, it's difficult for me to conceptualize them remaining here. And so my brain is like, yeah man, see the flying saucer come, it's gonna take them away and then finally get experience freedom on an uncolonized planet.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that, or you referenced that, because when you look at what's happening in society, in our own backyard today, you find that church is not necessarily a sacred space as what people had thought before or promoted or advocated for. Even recently, where the lady from Trelawney was pretty much killed in church. That also speaks to and asks a lot of questions. What does this mean? Is Christianity a serious thing? Is it something that is very much a part of our culture, or is it something that was planted upon us to follow? So,
I saw somebody talking about that, and he said, I think it was like a pastor, and he said, well, the church is a part of the world, so why would you think if something can happen in the rest of the world, it can happen in the church? But there's a meaning that church used to have. And that's the complication, right? There is something that used to hold a particular value, but it was problematic, and now it starts to hold less value. You don't have anything in the space of it, and so you're kind of just in this middle ground.
Yeah, you're just there. What is the true meaning? Asking, what is the true meaning?
So you need a spaceship.
That's why you need a spaceship.
So you can go wherever else. That's why you need to sound a bell.
Hey. And then that takes us to our next piece.
Yes.
Malika Capo Reynolds. Yes. The Angel Winged Moon.
Yeah.
Here we are bouncing between, again, the norms of what Christianity is. And Capo, who was an intuitive and eccentric, also had these many visions, and then he would create these pieces based on these visions.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, it left people looking at the piece like, what? Because here you have this winged man with his very phallic part exposed.
Okay.
And then it again brings question to then what is Christianity?
Yeah.
And what is art? And what's the comparison between the two and the cultures that lies there?
Despite the name, I thought it was going to be a woman. Because when, for some reason, even when I think about it, I'm like, but the archangels, Carla, it's like Archangel Michael. When I hear angel, I think, woman. And so when I get over here and I'm like, oh, this is very clearly a man. And now I'm thrown off because it's just not my expectation of a man angel or a black man angel.
And very anti this whole concept of modest, Christianity being modest. It is very much not.
It does not match with it.
Does not.
But it's that issue of the black body, you know, the body as being problematic, the black body as being problematic, and what happens when we, like, really in a very meaningful way, insert the black body into a space that's supposed to be the sacred. You know, like the corporeality of it. You put it into a sacred space and now it's like, well, now you destroy the space because you brought a penis in. And it's awkward. But again, it just reminds me we're very divorced from ourselves. When we think of the divine, when we think of the religious, we don't think of this.
No, we don't think of the authentic self
at all.
And what I hope for most people who tend to shy away from visiting spaces like this is that they end up asking themselves certain questions that they're of course not prepared to answer for themselves.
I used to shy away from art spaces because I used to feel like, suppose what the artist intended and what I've taken from it are not the same, and then my dance.
Yeah, well, I would hope that the artist creates work for the viewer to really look into themselves and tap into a part of themselves that they wouldn't normally. It's always great to hear the artist's intentions behind the work, what it was created for, the reason behind it, but it's also more important as to what the viewer gathers from it.
So come and be uncomfortable, and that's okay. Like, don't shy away from art spaces because you feel like you don't get it. Just carry yourself and your emotions and come and feel. Some of you are afraid of feeling, but we can get into that later.
It's good therapy.
It's good therapy! Okay, continue me on my therapy.
Let's go.
I'm feeling a lot.
Alright, sorry, you kept choosing.
You did.
Alright, here we are at Osmond Watson's. What?
Remember me tell you how we used to afraid for coming to art spaces to come and feel dunce? This made me feel dunce, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
When I look at this, I'm like, okay, so we see the horse head. So I'm like, alright, John Kuno. Then I'm reminded that I don't know nearly as much about John Kuno as I should as a Caribbean person. So then I'm like, alright, cool, just read it a little more. So I look at the foot, and the fact that the foot is at, you know, this angle is kind of bent like that. And I'm like, what is the artist trying to tell me with this foot? But overall, I look at this, and what I feel is, I don't understand this. and I should understand it because it's about a Caribbean cultural, product. And then I feel bad and I feel defeated and I just want to walk away.
Well, see, this is why it's a part of this exhibition.
Yeah.
Surreal Black, again, is speaking to all of these notions that are blackness, not only on a large scale, but at home.
Yeah.
And these are things that we need to be made more aware of and be more in tune with and celebrate more of.
Yeah.
And again, with regards to the Black Lives Matter movement and this major conversation about blackness, it's important for us to really re-engage with that, and that means going even deeper, tapping into our culture, what these things mean, and again, celebrate it and acknowledge it.
That's true. I mean, there's a way that especially Jungle gets trapped in this little tiny space.
No, yes.
No, and it's a space from the past. It's like anytime you bring it up, is you trying to haul it into the present.
I get that sense. And it's across the board with anything pertaining to history and culture. We did have an exhibition titled The Seven Women Artists, or an abridged version of that here at National Gallery West. And one of the pieces that stood out to me was a piece by Judith Salmon titled 20 Benches. Now what it was pretty much 20 small benches. All etched on top of these benches were Jamaican sayings or folklore.
Right.
And what was interesting to me is to see people come in. For those who know, the older generation, they would come and they would see these sayings, like time longer than rope, and these are the things.
Right.
But then you had a lot of the younger generation who came in and they were like, what is this?
Nothing.
What is this?
Yeah.
Somebody came to me and said they put their mother put saw us up on the counter, and the child came and said, what is this? What is this?
No.
We are totally disengaged. And then the older we get, the more younger persons come into this world, is the less engaged they are because of social media, because of whatever else is happening and what we pay focus to. And this is not one of them.
No. And we think that the things that we have are backward. We're actually proud to move away from anything that we associate with older Caribbean people because we can only imagine them as backward, as waiting to evolve into more European, more American versions of themselves, which we feel I'm a more European American version of my grandmother, and therefore I'm smarter, I'm more advanced, I'm more refined. And what we lose is there are things that they're just starting to think about now in some of these metropolitan centers that we've been doing as a part of our lives for years. The idea of something that's organic. Or,
do
you remember the hassock? You remember the hassock? You remember everybody used to have a hassock in them house?
Yes.
I remember them got rid of the hassock because it was a granny thing. It's been reinvented. But it's been gentrified and it's coming back as the poof. It's a hassock.
Can you imagine?
So we're in a rush to get rid of everything, and then somebody finds value in it, somebody who's not us.
Exactly, which is what is happening.
And they sell it back to us.
Which is what is happening.
At top price.
Which is what is happening. You find that people from other cultures, other countries, they come here and they glorify what we have. I look at people and be like, how is it that somebody's taking all our culture with them to where they're from and they're living it?
Yes, they are.
But we are too busy
trying to move to the culture they're abandoning. I wish that we could just catch up with ourselves before we are completely divested of our own value.
Right, and this is why Surreal Black exists.
I love
these conversations.
It made me uncomfortable. Thank you for that.
Why not? You could just, throw on a mask.
I mean, I'm sure my mother could pick one. She's very something.
Alright, so we're gonna head over to Fairyscape. So here we have Fairyscape by Colin Garland, one of my favorite artists. Colin Garland was an artist who pretty much was, or his works were pretty much the epitome of surrealism, fantasy, all of those things, under the umbrella of those terms. Fairyscape.
I love it.
You love it?
Yes, I love it. Well, okay, so I had like a little surrealism cheat sheet. And so I was like, Frida Kahlo is surrealist. And I love Frida's work. And I remember there was something similar to this that used to be somewhere in Montego Bay. And I remember looking at it and I was like, okay, it's giving Disney princess, it's giving singing bird, it's giving Zazu from the Lion King, it's giving fairy godmother talking tree.
Fairy tale.
It's giving fairy tale. And I love, like, when we were designing the first Black Disney princess, this is who it should have been, not the girl with a band clothes. Like, have you ever thought about the significance of that? That the first Black Disney princess that we got, The Princess and the Frog, she has men knocking on her door to collect their money.
Yeah, and not a great representation of, it's like teaching our youth, this is, as you said, our reality. When they're interested in our kids, it's not.
It's like, you never tell the parts of it, you're a Black woman, girl, you got loans and you are falling behind. Whereas when I see her, what I feel is, okay, she's just like a beautiful little Black girl. She herself is like magical, and she's just sitting here and there's this whole
world of
dreamscape
things happening
around her.
And that was one of the experiences, or that was what it was like for Colin Garland coming to the Caribbean. It was an escape for him, and he pretty much created that visual in his pieces. Again, for the love of the culture, so similar to what we just spoke about. His love for the culture, and being someone who is not Jamaican, not born into this society. He came here loving the culture and everything that it represented, and so drew inspiration from that and created the pieces. But again, it was an escape, and it had to be represented in this very, very dreamlike way, because that's what it felt like for him.
Yeah, I think it's really significant how you can have people working in the Jamaican context, but the people who are from Jamaica represented one way, and then the people who come here represented another way. And it's kind of how it is now. I have friends overseas and they're like, oh, you must love living in Jamaica, like you get to go to the beach all the time, and you live in paradise. And I'm here like, beach? To go to beach, you have to have time.
Right.
I don't have time to go to the beach.
Not our reality.
Yeah, so this is not how I would represent Jamaica. This is how I would like to feel.
Right.
Living in Jamaica.
But that's not the reality.
It's not at all.
Especially now, given our current situation. We're battling with COVID, we're battling crime, and also another thing that has come up out of the woodworks is the mental health state of many people, many of our Jamaican people. So, I really don't know what that means for our future if we don't start to channel our truths and appreciate what we are and the strength within our Blackness, the strength within our nation, and what we're going to do about it.
I don't know either. I mean, when I look at this, what I see is like an escape. And so I look at this little girl, and first of all, I think she looks like a little Black girl who is safe. Who, for a lot of Black women, that's not our experience. We don't get to be safe being out in the world. Some of us even at home. And then when I think about the dreamlike quality of it, I think, well, there are a lot of us as Black people who that is the place we have to escape to. Like, you have to go into your mind. You have to go into your creative self to pull away, because the outside is not safe for you. You're actually safer in your dreams. If you can be asleep and not up to you another night, but you're actually safer in your dreams than in the world. And I'm trying to remember when I was a little Black girl, what were the things that I would sit and dream about, and it was always a very soft world that I would think about. And I think I'm really drawn to this one because it feels like that
that experience,
that particular softness, and that
which a lot of us would love to go back to right now. Again, given the circumstances that we're currently on.
Definitely love that.
But we appreciate Colin Garland for this really awesome piece on the love of culture. I'm trying to represent it in a very surrealistic way. And sort of speaking to, again, the Surreal Black concept,
Yeah.
there are elements that we can totally draw from this piece that speak to that.
Yeah, that's true. I love you, little fairy girl.
Oh, you little fairy girl. Fairy skin.
I know, fairy skin. This is perfect. So we have come to the end of our time together at the Surreal Black exhibition at National Gallery West. I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity to have you talk me through the exhibition. Even though I know that we can engage art on our own, I think just having you here has really made a lot of stuff clearer. Plus, I love talking to you.
Yeah. It's awesome. Always talking to you too, and we appreciate you coming and being a part of this, especially being a voice and an ear for pretty much everybody. Considering we're not able to have or welcome visitors into the space, you have been that platform for everyone, and we appreciate you coming in and giving your insight also on what Surreal Black and Blackness is all about and all that works in the space.
I love it. I can't get right. Yeah. So please make sure that you follow National Gallery West. You're on Instagram.
We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook, and we also do have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We also have a blog.
Yeah.
Sorry, blog.
It's okay.
Blog, National Gallery at nationalgallerywest.wordpress.com. You may visit either option and check out what National Gallery West is about, as well as information on our current exhibition.
Yeah, and they do stuff there, like, you know, they teach you how to make stuff and, you know, things that require dexterity that some of you have and you should put to use, right? So the idea of a gallery, please remove it that it's just this stuffy place where people who are nothing like you go. Artists for everybody. Just come with your emotions, come with your feelings, be prepared to experience, and in the case of this particular exhibition, be prepared to come to terms with, and in a way that is very authentic, truly honor your Blackness. So thanks for having me, and thanks for watching. Bye.